in a few minutes how to do these accumulating entries to accumulate all of our costs in our three main manufacturing accounts. But first, just let me finish up this this flow chart here. After that accumulation happens, then we move the costs out of these materials, labor, and overhead accounts into work in process inventory. And we'll learn how to assign those costs and what journal entries are needed in a few minutes. But then once those costs are sitting in work in process, the work is being, the goods are being produced, then they keep accumulating there, and then when the goods are finished, they get moved out of work in process into finished goods inventory, and then eventually out of finished goods inventory and into cost of goods sold. So let's look at the accumulating entries for when we're buying materials, paying for labor, and incurring overhead costs. So material costs you'll typically see like this. Companies buy materials on account. We've seen stuff like this before. You're buying your paint and your glass and your metal and whatever your parts are, and we're debiting raw materials inventory, just one kind of main control account. Companies would have a bunch of other subsidiary accounts like for glass and nails and all the individual products, but we can lump all that together for purposes of our class. So that's accumulating raw materials, and this is the paying process. So accumulate AP right here, and then this AP will get paid off in due course. Factory labor costs are also incurred and paid as part of an accumulating entry. We're going to dump all of our labor costs into factory labor. This is also a control account where all of the costs associated with factory workers gets dumped into this account. Alright, so we can see we're paying factory wages. That amount is due to the workers. Any employer payroll tax, that's also related to factory wages. It also gets dumped into factory labor. And if there were factory labor fringe benefits, those costs would also get dumped into factory labor, and there would in fact be a third payable here for fringe benefits. So all the related payable costs get dumped into factory labor. In this journal entry, this factory labor, like I said, is another control account, and it then will be used to move costs through work in process and onto finished goods and cost of goods sold. Manufacturing overhead costs, this is where we're accumulating overhead. These are actual costs that a company incurs regarding its manufacturing process. So utilities for the factory, prepaid insurance, that's insurance on the factory, repairs, paying for repairs in the factory. Accumulated depreciation, this is depreciation of factory equipment in the factory itself. Property tax on the factory. So a bunch of overhead costs that aren't specifically materials or labor gets debited directly into this overall control account, manufacturing overhead. Okay, so now after you've kind of seen how all the costs get accumulated, we can then work on assigning those costs to work in process. And I'll get into that on study objective 3.